If you thought the last few videos have been fire, stick around, because today's conversation, we're looking at what it means for love to not be self-seeking. So this context, 1 Corinthians 13, Paul is speaking about love with spiritual gifts. Spiritual gifts don't have great effect, and in Paul's case, really mean little to none without this ability to move lovingly while walking in the spiritual gifts that you and I share being believers in the body of Christ. And if you're unfamiliar with the spiritual gifts, definitely check out Ephesians chapter 4, verse 11 through 13. And also check out the previous chapter, okay, where 1 Corinthians 13 follows 1 Corinthians 12, where Paul gives us a great deal of what the spiritual gifts are all about. And so definitely check that out as well regarding context. But let's take a look. Let's reread 1 Corinthians 13, 4 through 8 to get the precedence of what we're talking about today. 1 Corinthians 13, verse 4 through 8. Love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy and does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking, our text for this video. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. So what in the world does it mean for love to not be self-seeking? I'm sure that you probably get the gist of it just from hearing it. And if I can just keep it plain for a second, it's literally not moving in this love for your own personal gain. Okay, so it's hard for love to be genuine. It's hard for love to be effective. It's hard for this love that is presented to us in this context, that being agape love, the love of God. God is love, thereby being unconditional. You cannot move from this source of love if you are only loving others for your own sake. If you're only showing love to others for your own selfish gains. Let's just take a look at some of these specific descriptions and navigate through this study together. So the transliteration of this very specific section of self-seeking is actually translated to things like himself, herself, themselves. Okay, it's all about the self. It's all about you. It's all about what you want, what you desire. And it's a consistent theme that we've heard throughout our journey through this text. I've constantly reiterated the necessity of leaving a lot of flesh on the floor. And if you are unfamiliar with that term, I'm simply saying that there's a lot of dying to ourselves, our desires, our wants, in this process of really learning to love in a way that is a reflection of the love of God towards us, his creation, and his people. This pure love does not come from a selfish place, does not come from a place of force, a place of wanting what you want. It does not come from a place of just doing so you get something out of it. This is literally a pure love that gives us room to say that regardless of what you do for me, this is just simply what I want to do and be for you. So this raises the question, when you get into relationships, when you meet and encounter others again, this is not something that's limited to marriage, limited to romanticizing. This is every relationship that we have the capacity to create with one another, biblically speaking, okay, from work and team members to, of course, it does include marital and familial and all those other connections. And this also includes even some other relationships that we may have with others who don't agree with us, people who don't think too fond of us, or even vice versa. Maybe we don't agree with them. We don't think too fond of them. There's a lot of differences and not really anything positive going on there. Okay. Relationships that are far and close, distant and in proximity. All these things are what we ought to consider, because again, we're called to live in this space of love, not just reveal a love like this when things go our way, when we get what we want, or just to the people that we enjoy being around. And so again, this is just a consistent dying to ourselves. So the question then becomes, what are some examples of self-seeking love? Well, I'm actually going to respond to that with asking questions. Why do you do what you do for others that you claim you love? What is the agenda? It's constant, consistent questions that we've been asking throughout this whole series, but it's something to continuously harbor on. Are you giving this gift to your significant other because you know that by giving this gift, you're going to get something in return? Are you looking for sex? Are you looking for some kind of extravagant appraisal and appreciation? Are you only showing this person love because they have money and you need some money? Are you only showing this person kindness and gentleness because you want to butter them up, because you got something on the inside that you're trying to get after? You got something that you have to go to them for in order to get access to. Why are you being so loving? Why are you being so gentle? Why are you being so kind to this individual? Is it actually because you care for them? You enjoy them? You see them as someone who's made in the image and likeness of God? Is it because that they are a human being, a human soul? Or is it just simply because they have something you want? And you know that by way of moving in a kind way, you're going to ultimately get what you want. Is there a desired outcome that you're reaching that if you don't get there, you'll look back on processes and situations and say it's not worth it? You'll look back on seasons that you may be currently in and say it's not even worth doing because I'm not going to get what I want. So why would I love you? Why would I give this to you? Why would I be kind to you? Why would I care about you? Why would I stick with you through struggles and disagreements? Why would I want to stay if nothing I want is going to happen my way? Have you ever thought about that? Have you ever had questions about that? And any relationship that you get into, because of the humanity that you and I share, there's going to be arguments. There's going to be disagreements. There's going to be moments where our selfishness is not only going to show, but it's going to elaborate. It's going to shine through, because you've got two people that are trying to do their own thing and trying to pull their own weight and trying to throw it around in the relationship, because this is just how I've been doing things. This is just how I do things. So I'm not really interested in trying to adjust and accommodate and compromise. I'm really just trying to be sure that you get on board with what I got going on. So that way I don't have to adjust anything. You have to do all the adjusting and everything is peaceful. Because God forbid, right? Like I don't get what I want. You won't like me, because if I don't get what I want, it's not a fun time. I want you to consider that, because when we look at the description that Paul gives us behind love not being self-seeking, we can't reach a pure, honest love that is at the heart of God for us, his people, his creation, that then we, being connected to him, have the opportunity to reflect to others who don't know him. We can't even really enjoy who we're in front of, get to know honestly and earnestly who we're in front of, because there's something on the inside of us, an agenda, a direction, something we want, something they have, and it blinds us from really being genuine. Because I want you to keep this in mind as well when you talk about self-seeking. What happens when you give somebody something that they've been asking you for? When you give them that money, do they still stick around and check in on you? Do they still remain by your side and desire to communicate with you, to be involved in your life? Or is it when they get what they came to you for, you don't hear them again until they need that very same thing again, or until they need something else again, right? You're almost treated like a cash cow. So when they come to you and they get what they wanted, they're gone. You don't hear them again until they need it. Is that something that maybe you're experiencing, or that you've possibly done to other people? Because that isn't love. You're using that individual. You're not loving that individual. Products are to be used, not people, right? Products are to be used, not people. And so when we find ourselves in those positions, we have to really genuinely ask ourselves, why are we here? What are we doing? What are we really trying to achieve? And then here's another thought to address too, as we continue diving through this text. Because I think a lot of times we might think, oh, well, I'm being honest, though, right? Like, I told her that I'm not really looking for nothing. I told her that I'm just, I'm not trying to be married. I don't have that intention. I told her that I'm not looking for nothing official. I just want the cheeks. I just want the bed. I just want this and that. So cool, right? You were honest there. I want you to also question that very same thing about what you're saying you're being honest about. Is that really the right direction? Like, I know you're being honest about how you feel. I know that you're being honest But is that really a true direction to walk in? Like, is that a direction that's beneficial to you, to your purpose, to your identity, to what God and who God is calling you to be? Is that really beneficial? Have you ever taken the time to consider the individual that you're moving towards like this? Does their perspective not matter to you at all? The fact that they might be looking for something serious and you're just out here playing around, trying to find a rebound. That doesn't matter to you at all? Have you ever thought about questioning why you're doing what you're doing? I know you're being honest. I know you're telling it like a TI is, but is that really what it should be? Is that really a true direction to walk into that's actually transformative and beneficial to your life? Something to think about. Because when we do things out of selfish will and selfish gain, there's a lot of animalistic thinking that's behind the scenes. It's a lot of impatience that's behind the scenes. And we all know what happens when things are, when people grow impatient, when processes feel impatient. There's a lot of forceful things going on. We know the end result behind those things. We definitely don't really get what we were looking for. So then by way of forcing it, we're animals at this point. We are indulging in an illicit pleasure, because anything that you indulge in for pleasure that comes at the cost of violating somebody else is an illicit pleasure. So you're willingly going out of your way because it's what you want, and what you want comes first. Forget what everybody else wants. Forget what everybody else is wanting to consider. It's me, myself, and I is all I got in the end. I know you know your Beyonce song. So I'm just putting myself first in everything, not taking into consideration the individuals who are around me that could be hurt by my decisions, that could be very, very much damaged and scarred by my decisions. The example that I am setting among others who may be around me that look up to me, whether I know or I don't. How about this idea of just simply dishonoring God, because he's the one whom we are to love first before anyone else. So we're dishonoring him by our actions and motives behind what we're doing. So I want you to consider all of these things when it comes to moving in a manner that is only for your own sake. Are you reaching out to this person because you genuinely care enough to check in on them, because you value them? Or are you just checking in on them because you're bored, you're lonely, and you're looking for some attention? Like, you could really care less about what this person has to say to you right now. You're actually really just hoping that you get that "you up" text late at night. You're really just hoping that you're able to cash in and go lay down and get some cheeks and then come back. Like, is that really what we're after? We got to remove ourselves from the center of attention, y'all. We do. And that's probably one of the hardest things to do, especially when we're so used to being around a culture that tells us that everything we want, we deserve, we're entitled to, and we should have it at any cost. And anybody who tells me otherwise is somebody that I don't need in my life. Have you ever considered that there are people you need in your life that challenge you? People you need in your life who love you enough to tell you no, because what you're asking for is actually derailing you from where you're really wanting to go, who you're wanting to be, your destiny and your purpose, and who God has called you to be. Like, these things matter in the biblical worldview. These things matter in the kingdom way of living. And if we find ways to disregard that, we become animals. We become animals. We destroy ourselves in the process. We destroy others in the process. And we disregard everything. So in order for this love to really be effective, I have to put what I want to the side for the greater good of the individual that I'm encountering. I may not have liked what was said. I may not have appreciated the tone that was used. Hey, I had an outcome that I envisioned when I encountered this person, and it seems like we're farther away from that than ever before. But I have to be willing to be okay and accept that person for where they are and love that individual. I didn't say agree, but love. Show that person that they are seen, heard, and understood. I may not agree with where you are or what you're doing or how you're going about it, But that does not mean that you are seen as a less valuable human being because we're at odds or disagreement. I can still choose to love you and to show love to you by not putting my wants and my desires first. I know that this is what I want, but what do you think? Where are you at? Do you have the capacity to go through with this? Do you have the capacity to deal with this? And being okay if the answer is no. Being okay if the desired outcome is not something that happens. I've been on an idea lately, just because it speaks so loud to my life, is that oftentimes we find ourselves angry at God because we didn't get what we thought he would give us. We didn't receive that relationship, that promotion, that job, that land, that property. We didn't receive something that we prayed for. And so we find ourselves angry at God because we placed an expectation on him as if he was supposed to deliver on what we asked of him. And so we find ourselves angry, bitter. We turn our backs on God. God didn't give me that. He didn't come through on that. He didn't give me that relationship like I asked. He didn't do that, did that. So I'm just done with God. And that's a very selfish, self-seeking way of thinking, because you were only coming to God because you wanted something that you at least thought you believed he could give you. At least you wanted to believe he could give you. And so when he didn't give it to you, you left. Does that sound familiar on any other relationships you may have been in, where somebody didn't give you something you wanted in the moment you wanted it, and so you went sour, so sour, you left, you bailed? This relationship that we're able to create and have with God is so much greater than the material things that we know he has the power and capacity to give us. But I'm not in it for what he can give me. I'm in it for who he is. So whether or not I get it, I'll be okay. Because the value is not determined by the desired outcome being reached. The value is so much lessons I bring out of the processes I find myself in that are challenging me and that are transformative to my mind, will, and emotion that bring me closer to the person of Christ, loving more like him. This self-seeking portion was really challenging to me and has been challenging to me, again, just regarding a special individual that I have in my life currently. And there was a desired outcome that I had and that I have regarding this relationship. And the longer that the relationship has progressed, and it's been beautiful, it's been wonderful, I had to really sit back and ask myself if I was okay if that desired outcome didn't come to pass. Was I okay if what I wanted didn't happen? And at first I was pretty upset. Like, I wasn't feeling too good about that idea not happening. And come to find out, the more that I sat with that, the more that I meditated on that, I came to realize that I actually wasn't really so willingly embracing the love that God really has for me and just enjoying that. I found myself consistently trying to win over this person's love and heart in some kind of way. I kept finding myself trying to put myself in positions to where I was like, man, if I can just get this, I'll be good. As if that was the measuring stick. And once I really was able to sit down and get these 3 things in order, which I'm going to share with you that I hope helps you in any relationship you create, things really began to shift and change for the greater, at an even greater level. So here's the method that helped me out of that selfish space. And I hope maybe it does some transformation for you. It's a run method. Okay. RUN. And this method is what actually is going to breathe life into you and I to be able to love others the way God loves them, allow the love to be reflective off of our life, and for them to be impacted and affected by it. The first part is removing ourselves. Remove yourself. Now, I'm not speaking of some Eastern religion ideology where you don't exist, your feelings don't exist, suffering doesn't exist. No, I'm not going that deep. That's not the case. What I am telling you, however, is that oftentimes a lot of the frustrations that we face in the relationships we carry comes from us not getting what we want. We saw something going down the way we envisioned it, the way we planned it, the way it was in our heads, and then it didn't happen. And so we're really frustrated. And when we get frustrated like that, there's a lot of clouds that formulate over our minds and over our eyes. Clouds of disappointment, We can be really ignorant and begin to ignore people a lot. Okay. We can be really upset to the point where we start cutting people off. We start bailing on people. We no longer want to uphold things that we were just saying over and over again to try and get this person to give us what we wanted. So then they ended up not giving it. So then we dipped, just going back on everything we said. We get really angry, defensive, and offended. And the more we zoom in on that, the more we become frustrated, the more we feel entitled to make it all about ourselves. I was here. I really felt entitled to hold on to that anger. I really felt entitled to feel like I deserved to feel the way I did about a relationship. I really did. Held on to it. And it was so interesting to me that the longer I remained in the space of prayer and intimacy with God, even through that space, I found myself having to let go more and more. I couldn't hold on to the selfishness. I couldn't hold on to this idea that everything had to be about me and about my way. So when I removed myself from the center of everything and I began to look at things from a broader scope, I was able to actually begin to consider the perspective of the other individual. Okay, well, where are they at? How are they feeling? What are some things that they're wrestling with in life right now? What are some things they got on their plate right now? Because this isn't all about you. I began to actually be able to breathe and get some more clarity and understanding, which actually leads me to my next point, because once we're able to move ourselves from the center of attention and acknowledge and accept that this life is not about me, this is not all about me, so why make it all about me? Now I'm able to make room for the you understanding. So now I'm able to get understanding on what's happening, what took place, why it went down, and move forward from there. Now, I do want to preface this by saying that I'm not suggesting to everyone in all cases that you need to go get clarity on something you don't know or on something you're confused about. Is it helpful? 1000%. And if you're not in a position where you feel you can accept whatever answer comes out of someone's mouth, I don't think you should put yourself personally in a position where you are seeking that clarity, because I just don't know if it's going to help you. I think there's some questions you have to consider. I think there's some thought processes you have to consider. You have to consider the individual that you're dealing with, because not everybody that you go back to for clarity is going to be so kind and loving and gentle and understanding and listening to whatever it is that you are bringing to them regarding the confusion that has taken place in any and every relationship you find yourself in. So here's some questions that I think is fair enough to ask yourself and evaluate where you are before you go out of your way to go get an understanding. And then we'll kind of tie all this up with this one scripture in mind that I think will really help us see the importance of getting understanding. The first question is, can you handle whatever answer comes your way? Right? We just discussed that. Can you handle it? Is this, whatever answer they give you, good or bad, are you in a position where you can handle it? Can you really accept whatever answer they give you? If you can, great. If not, I'm not so sure that that's something that you should put yourself into at this very moment in time. Here's the second question. Does getting this understanding, this clarity, push you forward in any kind of way? Or would going back and getting this understanding regress and reset your progress? Anything that is going to reset you, relapse you, and keep you in this downward spiral isn't going to be beneficial for you in the long run. It's going to continuously put you in a cycle of hurt and confusion instead of really getting the healing you need. So we really want to be careful with this and just really look at everything from a very good objective perspective. And of course, I always suggest this as well, getting around really good and wise counsel that you have available to you to help you navigate through this. Because I think it's easy to overthink. It's easy to get in your head a lot about these things. So you definitely want to get around some people who are able to kind of listen to you, pull some things out, and help you see things from a clearer view to just give you what you need to be able to make the decision you need to continue moving forward with whatever the situation is now, and being able to go and move forward to what things can be for you. I think it's easy to prescribe to others that they should go get it. I'm a fan of it. Okay. I'm not a fan of being in the dark. And I think anytime I have an opportunity to go get clarity, especially in this recent year, I do emphasize that I think in my preference, that's something to take. However, I know that not everybody operates in a very kind, moving, loving manner. So there are some opportunities that you might have to go get clarity that could potentially crush you more if you went to go get it. And that's not to scare you from going to go get it. I just think that's something to consider based on the individual you're going to seek clarity about regarding whatever relationship that you might be feeling at odds or uncomfortable about. Now, I will say that this text that I'm going to bring to you is actually really good biblical precedence behind the necessity to getting an understanding. And I think it's something that has encouraged me. It's actually been a verse of the year for me. And Proverbs 4:7 is where it's at, because he tells us wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore, get wisdom. And with all you're getting, get an understanding. So what this verse screams out to me is that there's a necessity to get an understanding on things I don't know. Right? Things I don't know. Things I don't have an answer for. And that if I had an answer for, I actually would be able to give something a little bit more of an efficient answer, a more beneficial understanding behind it can go a long way. And so wisdom actually does push us to a place of being willing to get understanding. And if you're in a place, if there's certain things that have happened to you where getting an understanding and clarity isn't available because what happened was of such great degrees that are above you, like the loss of a loved one, death of a family, loss of a child, family member, or even yourself is caught with a serious disease and sickness. Those kinds of things are really hard to go and seek clarity, right? Because those things are really above us in a lot of ways, right? That even if we were to ask God why he allowed such a thing to happen, it's not guaranteeing that we're going to get an answer. And if we're being honest, if God were to give an answer, it would be something that still surpassed our finite mind. And so things like that can be tough, and it's a very difficult thing to swallow, because truth is, I don't have an answer for those kinds of things. I don't have anything that I think I could give that would be so comforting. I also would say that to anything that is of a degree that is more controllable and you have access to the source behind the incident, separation, drifting, whatever took place, if clarity is necessary for you to move forward, I would be one to say, go get it. And if it's not something that you really believe would be beneficial for your progression and it would set you back, and you would feel as if all this progress that you've already made would be reset in some way. You feel as if maybe the individual you're going to get clarity about would crush you, disrespect you in any kind of capacity. Maybe that's not something that we should do. Okay, so I'm leaving that to you because I think everybody's different and there's got to be some room to decide, okay, how you want to go about it. If you go get it, great. If you don't, I think whatever you do, choose to be okay with that and accept it for what it is and be able to move forward that way. Go ahead and wrap this thing up. When it comes to love not being self-seeking, anything that is done out of selfish gain, selfish ambition, and animalistic behaviors is not some place that love is present. Love does not carry animalistic behaviors behind it. That's something that we as humans must work through. And it's this love that actually allows us to be in a more self-controlled manner, moving with integrity and character along the way. This love loves others for their own sake, does not dishonor others, values the human heart, and is filled with patience and understanding. In fact, scripture also tells us that one who is slow to wrath has great understanding. So in order to be an individual who is slow to anger, offense, being defensive. One of the key things to growing in that space is being willing to move in curiosity, asking questions, and removing ourselves from the center. I'm so glad I said that because I almost forgot the N to our method. Then here's the N, recognizing that there's no greater love. That's the N. So we have removal, understanding, no greater love. And this last part is actually what creates the bedding and foundation for us to really be able to begin moving in this transformative love. Recognizing that the love that God has for us is matchless. And so all that someone could ever do from a human perspective is reflected, but they cannot match it. I can't match it for someone else, and others can't match it for me. It is God's love and God's love alone that gives us the capacity to move in such a transformative space. But in order to do that, I have to truly embrace that God loves me. I have to truly embrace that God's love for me is enough. I have to be okay with recognizing that there is no love that can match this love that he has for me. It's proven through the cross. And this is what satisfies me. Because I really want you to consider this. For those of you who may be single, for those of you who may desire marriage, who may desire long-lasting relationships with somebody, this love can be lived out where you are right now. You don't have to wait to have that in order to move in this love. A love that is not self-seeking, that doesn't dishonor others, that is patient, that is kind, that does not envy, that is not boastful or proud. And then the rest of the descriptions that we'll cover. You can live in that right now. You can live in that right now. And if you really want to be able to see this transformative love come to pass in your life, it has to start not when you get married, not when you find that relationship. It starts with your intimacy with Christ, with Jesus through the scriptures. Allow his word to hold precedence in your heart for the things that have broken it. Allow him to be the voice that you hear and lean into as you're dealing and healing through things that have crushed you in some capacity, that have made your heart go cold. You were the first to love. You were the one who expressed such expressions, and it wasn't returned, and it left you crushed, left you hurt, pieces of your heart in your hand. Maybe you're dealing with a harsh breakup, never saw it coming. Maybe you're dealing with a friend. Maybe you're dealing with somebody who has just separated themselves from you. You have no idea why. But it hurt. You're allowed to hurt. You're allowed to feel that. And your brokenness is not bigger and greater than God. It's embracing this love that he has for us that allows us to fail forward. This love that he has for us allows us to go out to other people and be the first to love, recover from what we've been hurt by, and go back out there and love others first. Not doing it for selfish gain, not doing it for our own agendas, not doing it because we're looking for something in return, and if we don't get it, then hey, it's a waste. No, we do it because, as 1 John 4:19 tells us, because he loved us. We love him because he first loved us. And so this is an opportunity to really be able to walk that out, but it does not really begin until we embrace the love God has for us, until we embrace that God is all we need. We may want that relationship, but we don't need it. We may want things to go that way, but we don't need it to go that way. We may want this person to start responding this way. We may want this person to start living like this with us. We may want this person to start doing certain things for us. We may want this person to start reciprocating the way we want them to reciprocate it, but we don't need it because it's the love of God that will always be enough. And when two people who are pursuing God get together, I mean, truly, this is what's so beautiful about godly relationships that scripture even speaks to when we talk about being equally yoked and all those kinds of things, which again is not just limited to one fashion of relationships. But just to save time, what's so beautiful about godly relationships, y'all, is that when two people are in covenant with God and are pursuing God individually, when they get together, there is a you before me aspect on both sides. And so when you have somebody who says, what can I do for you? And somebody else who comes along and says, what can I do for you? Both individuals' needs are met without having to guard their hearts and wall it up by never being the first to love or embrace the other in fear of such not being returned to them. It's because the love of God is the focus. It's because God is the focus. It's because Christ, biblical standards and values are the focus. So when two people who genuinely pursue God come together, both are going to have their needs met. And being filled with love, being seen, heard, and understood, doesn't mean you won't have arguments. Doesn't mean you won't have disagreements. Doesn't mean that you won't not see eye to eye at times. Oh, and of course, that's relationship. That's the commitment part. That's something that we have to be willing to choose to do and go to work with and about every day, all day. And it's the values that we come back to. Knowing that this love I have for you is not just for what you do, it's for who you are. It's your heart. And that is revealed through our pursuit to Christ, our pursuit in Christ. It breathes this life for us to pursue each other and pour into one another. So recognize that in godly relationships, this love has the capacity to be poured back into you. And that's essentially what we look for, because love is God. God is love. And before we are even able to have relationships with other people, it's a relationship with God that's most necessary. And so it's through this relationship with God that we're being poured in with such great, efficient love that, of course, we look for that in others. But they also need to be pursuing God in order for such to be met. So we can't expect people who are not in covenant with God to love us this way. And I think that's where a lot of times we get it messed up. We set our expectations, we set biblical expectations on people who don't know a lick of scripture, who don't know Jesus themselves, who don't know Jesus. And so if they don't know Jesus, they can't understand us. So we have to be willing to recognize who it is that we are moving in love towards. That gives us the ability to know what we can and can't expect. And whether or not such expectations are met, that does not stop us from continuing to love them. Otherwise, it would be self-seeking. This is what it means, y'all. This is what it really looks like to love somebody. Not just because it's all good and they look good and it feels good to be around them. No. I love you through and through, disagreements and all. Not seeing eye to eye and all, challenges and all, flaws and all. This is a love that cannot create early exits. Simply because they don't have what you're wishing you had doesn't mean that they aren't worth loving. Just because they aren't reciprocating something to you in the quickness that you desired it doesn't mean that they don't see your value. And so you should just get up and go because you deserve better, king and queen. What? No, how about we put ourselves in a humbling position and seek some understanding on why they aren't reciprocating so fast? What's taking place? I'm just curious. What's up? Right? Have that honest, open, transparent conversation. Hey, what happened? What's going on? Talk to me. So you have understanding on where things are and potentially what you could expect later on. You're able to make a very much more clearer decision on the relationships because you got the clarity, because you got the understanding. Somebody's got to be the first to do it. And this love is what eliminates this idea that I'm only doing such because you're giving this to me. Because if you just stop doing, then I'll just stop loving. See how selfish that is? It's the very opposite of love, as Paul's telling us. So again, a question I'll leave with you is, why are you doing what you're doing? Why are you genuinely trying to show up for this individual, be in this individual's life? Why are you actually trying to entertain such a relationship? I promise you, if it's anything outside of genuinely wanting to connect with this individual, grow with this individual, build with this individual, pursue God with this individual, if it's anything outside of that, you're only talking to them because they got money and you don't. You're only talking to them because they have something that you need. So when you get it, you're dipping. You're only hitting up that girl because you wanted some cheeks. Oh, you're only hitting up that guy because you heard he was good in bed. That's your whole reasoning behind it. So the moment things stop looking so good, you're dipping. You're not really trying to stay to commit to understand. You're leaving at the first inconvenience. We talked about that in the patience video. If you haven't checked it out, check it out. Link in the description. You're leaving at the first inconvenience. things didn't go the way you wanted to. So I guess I need to double back on everything I was saying prior to, because I was only saying that because I was hoping that my desired outcome would come to pass. That's the only reason why I was doing it. Why are you doing it? Because then when you ask yourself these questions, you're able to really analyze if you're really moving in love, to which, if it matches any of those descriptions that we've talked about, you're not moving in love. It's anything but love. It's animalistic. It's lust, selfish gain, selfish reasoning. It's all about you. And honestly, as we wrap this up, y'all, listen, if you find yourself in that position, this is not something to bash you over the head with. This is not something to beat you up over the head with. There is so much grace and restoration for all of us, because we've all found ourselves there at one point or another. But now that we see it, we have an opportunity to really move forward with things by applying this text into our lives in a way that allows us to move in such a transformative love. The love you and I desire as human beings is a love that's rooted in this agape unconditional love. We don't want people around us just because we have something that they want or may think they need. No, we want people here for the long haul. We want people here in the good and the bad. We want people here when things are up and when things are down. We want people here when we're struggling and need a restoration. Yeah, we just don't want people around us when things are up. That's when everybody's around us. Where were you when I needed you? Matter of fact, I want people in my life that if I told them no, they're not gonna go ballistic on me. They're not gonna go crazy on me. I want people in my life who I can build and connect relationships with that have matching values. So when the disagreement happens, it doesn't mean that because we need space that I'm leaving, that I don't care about you no more and I don't love you no more. I want relationships where we can push each other closer to Christ and closer to our purpose that we've been designed to walk out in this life. I know TikTok and social media has painted this cute picture that you deserve all the things in the world because you're the best human being out here and there's nothing wrong with you. But that's not true. We all got some baggage and some flaws with us. And no matter how many times you hop from one person to the next romantically, you hop from one friend to the next, you hop from one job to the next, you hop from one church to the next, you hop from one... I'm trying to tell you, everybody's got something. You gonna always find something in somebody that you may not like. And guess what? They're gonna do the same to you because we're not perfect. So I hope you're seeing that as we're journeying through this, love is not just butterflies in the stomach and feeling on cloud nine. Love is not just about the TikTok videos and the Instagram pictures. Love is not just about having the opportunity to have sex in the bed every time you get a chance. Love is not just culminated in a marriage where then you have all these accesses to this individual that you may not have had before. Like this is not, we have to find this love in God that gives us the opportunity to then love others in such a pure fashion that, again, it makes them want to become more like Christ, y'all. So you got to think about some of the actions and activities you're doing that's possibly blinding others from seeing the love of God. Now, granted, we don't have the power like that to stop God from being revealed to individuals. He can use anything, even a donkey, to get his way. So we know God can use anything and anybody, and we don't have the power to hinder him. And as believers, we are called to be ambassadors to Christ. So instead of shutting people out who disagree with you, instead of ignoring them and being apathetic towards culture, why don't we get involved? Ask questions, remain in spaces of consideration, challenge ways of thinking, and be willing to give an answer for the hope that is within us. Peter tells us this love is not just limited to the people you want to spend time with and be around. This love does get very challenging, even to them, those who we love and be around, and to those who disagree with us and stand on the opposite side of things. But if we are really going to be ambassadors of Christ, this is a love that we're called to live in and continuously find ourselves growing in. And we just lost another piece of flesh, if you will, some more selfishness on the floor from this very video. Ask yourself why you're doing what you're doing. Because if everything goes wrong, are you still there? If you don't get what you want, are you still there? And if you can't come to terms with that and be okay with that, don't you dare. And I'm telling you this from being on both sides, the person who did it and the person who it was done to. Don't you dare ghost that individual and block that individual from your life, especially after all the conversations and leading on and all that kind of stuff that you may have potentially done, if that's something that you might find yourself in position of doing. If you are not okay with where things are headed because you're looking for something different, whatever the case is, man, be honest. Let them know. Communicate such to them. Because I have experienced both ends and it was not fun. I'm not saying you got to tell everybody that you may be separating from, hey, I'm just letting you know this, that, and the third. No, I think there are some natural relationships and friendships that maybe, y'all had a season where time was really good and spent, and now you're in two different lanes. I think it's fair to say that there are some relationships that do happen like that. But to the relationships that you thought about creating and you looked and appeared as if you were looking to intently move directionally with somebody, I'll just speak relationally here, because I think that's where a lot of that happens. You were telling this person how you were going to be this and you were going to be that and you were going to do that and you were going to be this, and then something happened where it no longer looks like it's going to. Don't ghost them. Let them know. Communicate that to them. You can't control how they're going to respond, but communicate that to them, because they don't deserve to be left in the dark. Just like you wouldn't appreciate being left in the dark. One day everything was good, and then the next day you're ghosted, blocked on everything, and you don't know what the heck happened. So now you're sitting here with all these overthinking thoughts, assumptions, and you're just left with confusion. Something to consider. These are things that I speak to you from places of experience. Some I wish I didn't have to experience, but I did. And because of it, I've actually learned a lot from it. And some experiences that I'm in right now are so amazing, because I'm learning what it looks like to really be loving to people. And it is hard and impossible to move in this love that we're called to when we keep ourselves at the center of everything. Because everything has to go our way. Everything has to be done the way we see fit. And if it isn't, can't rock with it. That just can't be the way we move. Not as believers. Very challenging. I get you. And it only gets harder, because now we're going to look at, what does it mean for love to not be easily angered? And does that mean that I don't get angry at all when it comes to love? We'll discuss that in our next video. I hope you guys got a lot out of this. All right. Hopefully this was enough. Wheels are turning. You're able to reflect on some things. Listen, if you appreciated this video, smash the like button, send this and share this with somebody who you think could greatly benefit from hearing something like this in their life. If you're new, hit that subscribe button. You're in the right place. All right. We do a lot of short form biblical content over here. So if you are a nerd for that kind of thing, you want to grow in your faith, you want to learn more about the text, about the scriptures, and how we can apply it to our everyday life, be sure to stick around and check out this very channel. We got stuff coming out to you on the daily. Playlist, summary in 60s, going through every chapter in the Bible, summarizing chapters in the scriptures, all these kinds of things. So much more coming your way, you guys. And I'm greatly appreciative that you were able to spend some time with your boy. And as always, until our next conversation, be easy and be breezy, my friend. Peace.